Thank you, brother Mayako. Yes, sir. Appreciate you for that, Baba. Great words. Great words. Let's go to Queen Mother Emma, representing the Ethiopian World Federation. Queen Mother, how you doing tonight? Are you there, Mother Emma? Okay, we're going to leave her up on cue for a minute, Sister Ayo, but she might have stepped away for a minute. We're now going to come to Sister Janae. How you doing there, Sister Janae?
Hey, I'm good. I know it's late, so I'm going to try to be as brief.
It's okay. It's okay. Where you joining us from, Queen?
I'm from Clearwater, Florida.
Clearwater, Florida. And where would you be on the color spectrum?
Brown skin.
Brown skin, sister. All right. I'm sure you've heard a lot of conversation tonight, and I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are regarding the black skin, light skin, color privilege, bias, discrimination, prejudice, light skin supremacy, dark skin supremacy, biracial supremacy. What do you think is going on, Queen?
Well, for me, a little bit about my story. It's kind of complex. It's layered. My mom is a narcissist, and she does have an undiagnosed mental disorder. My brothers and I do believe that she's bipolar, just based on her reactions, her symptoms, all that. So in my case, my mom has a beautiful complexion. She's about Lapita's complexion from 12 Years a Slave. Like, legit get out the shower, don't have to, put on lotion. She just has a beautiful complexion. And to me, I always felt like, she was the most beautiful woman, but her spirit is so ugly. Mm-hmm. And I think that because with me, I'm brown skin. I'm probably Nia Long's complexion, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I grew up thinking I was light skinned. And as a result, it's like she always downplayed me. And what I mean by that is being light skinned, I'm weak, I'm dense, no common sense. I'm just like my daddy. It was no validation. So for me, and it's interesting because I really haven't met women like me as far as dealing with, and this is not to demonize, dark-skinned women, it's just my experience, but I haven't met another woman who has kind of endured the trauma that I have. Okay. So with her, like I said, it was just always something negative. My brother who was on here, he encouraged me to speak. They're about the same complexion. He was always her chocolate man, and, anything dealing with his complexion was always praised. And what's interesting is, I went to FAMU, so shout out to my HBCU graduates. I took this African-American studies class, and I started learning about colorism and just our history. And I remember, sitting down with my parents and just telling them, this was my experience. And my mom, she shared with me that, she didn't want me to, endure what she went through, and she actually prayed I was light-skinned. Now, what's interesting is I feel like as parents, it really can't.
Now, what's your father's complexion real quick? Your mother's dark, chocolate. What's your father?
He's light-skinned, probably a shade lighter than brown. So he's not red, but he's kind of between that light skin and light brown.
I got you.
Yeah, so for me, it was interesting because it's in her case, she was trying to protect me, from ridicule or just, being a mockery, just anything just negative about being light skinned. But growing up, I feel like she was my bully. I never, just as far as elementary school, being an adult, I never dealt with, other black women making comments about me being light skinned. It was from her. And so what I was saying is I feel like it's interesting that, she prayed I was light skinned. Of course, I ended up being brown skin. I'm lighter than her. But her fears are what really, influenced her to make me hate myself. And so that's kind of a little bit, and like I said, also too with the narcissism, I don't know if anyone's dealing with a narcissistic parent. My heart goes out to you. My mom and I are not on speaking terms because she is so toxic. So I'm just sending out my prayers, and I'm getting therapy for 2022 because of that. But one thing I have noticed, Dr. Umar, is that a lot of the colorism and the trauma, it comes from black mothers. Yeah, because I was notes, and I'm damn, I haven't heard anything about, colorism from the father. So just
a lot of that might have to do with the fact that a lot of times the fathers are not there too long as well. But continue, Goddess.
That makes sense. But yeah, so from, like I said, I'm hopefully I'm not stuttering. I'm kind of nervous.
No, you're doing fine. You're doing fine.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, can you just kind of give your perspective on that? Just the traumas of, you know, like the mother. Is it a difference between the colorism between the mother and the father, or just anything like that, or like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the father's colorism can be more subtle. If a black man has a chocolate daughter, he may be very careful not to offend her in any way because that's still his princess. However, if she observes her father close enough, if he does practice skin color prejudice, she will notice through his behavior that although he doesn't have an issue with her per se, he does have an issue with other black women who are of her complexion. Whereas with the black mother, she's more likely to be direct with her daughter, and she will say derogatory things about her daughter's dark skin or light skin or brown skin. And because I have observed, psychologically speaking, that black mothers and daughters have issues in their relationships anyway that can become intensified by issues of skin color prejudice. So if you're a super light and you got a dark mother, or you're super dark and you got a light mother, if the mother is already emotionally abusive to her black daughter, then that skin tone becomes another weapon that the mother uses to abuse the daughter. And the reason the mother is doing that, 9 times out of 10, she had it done by her own mother. So one thing we got to understand about trauma, trauma is intergenerational. It's going to be hard for you to find first generation trauma. First generation trauma doesn't really exist in the black community. Anybody dealing with any kind of trauma, sexual, verbal, physical abuse, alcoholism, sexual promiscuity, single motherhood, most of our traumas are intergenerational, and they may even go back to slavery, which is why when white folks talk about black people and our problems, it's so hypocritical, because they introduced the original sins that created the trauma that we simply perpetuate generation after generation. So with that being said, you might look at the women in an entire family line and you'll say, wow, great-great-grandmom verbally abused great-grandmom, and great-grandmom verbally abused grandmom, and grandmom verbally abused my mother, and now my mother is verbally abusing me. Trauma in the black community is not first generation. Sometimes it is, most of the time it isn't. And one of the things we're going to end up doing on a Clubhouse in my room, we will dedicate a conversation to the relationship crisis between black mothers and their daughters. Because guess what? If you a chocolate sister and you got to go out into this world and deal with black men overlooking you, white America rejecting you, other black women keeping their distance from you, and your father's not in your life, the only person that you can really turn to is your mother. And when you don't have a mother that is in your corner, and a lot of black women did not have mothers that was in their corner, that's how they get introduced into the underground sex trade. That's how they get introduced into abusive men. That's how they get introduced into selling their bodies. So the black mother not being a source of emotional support for her daughter serves as a gateway for black women to experience so many of these evils that American society has out there for us. But please continue, Goddess.
I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, that was my experience. And, you know, like I said, we're not on speaking terms. But I just want to say, too, you know, as far as, like, you know, light skin and brown skin women, we also have had it hard. And I don't want us to get dismissed where we haven't had issues. Because like I was saying earlier, you know, my mom was my bully. And I didn't experience, you know, like being teased for being light skin, nothing like that. If anything, I wanted to be dark skin. And to me, the trauma was so deep that I didn't want a daughter who looked like me. Like, when I envisioned being a mother, which, you know, I will be one day, God willing, at one point I wanted my daughters to be dark skinned. And I didn't realize that, like I said, until I was in college. And I was just like, yo, like, why do I hate my complexion? You know, so I'm glad you touched on trauma because it really is deep. And I really do encourage you to do, you know, a clubhouse on narcissistic parents, particularly mothers, because I feel like I'm reading this book now. It's called Difficult Mothers by Susan something. But, you know, women are like, you know, the caretakers and, you know, the Black community. So, like, they're on this, like, not a pedestal, but we value Black mothers or whatever. But I feel like we don't talk enough about the pain and, like you were saying, the damage between Black mothers and daughters. So, you know, if you do, you know, host a clubhouse, I'd be, you know, more than willing to, you know, be a speaker because I feel like it should be, you know, like, definitely talked about more.
Now, let me ask you this, Goddess, before we let you go. How has life been with men? Being brown skin, you know, is that a pretty safe group for a Black woman to be in? I mean, do you find that, you know, brown skin is acceptable? You may not be, you know, light bright, but you are brown. So would you say that your skin color has not really been a deterrent for you in dating? Or would you say that you have still gotten overlooked for even lighter sisters?
I wouldn't say that I got overlooked. I do recall one experience in college, and I cut this dude off completely. You know, he basically said something about my complexion is really pretty, and he said something about how he doesn't like dark-skinned women, and he praised my complexion. To me, I felt like that was triggering for me. Because anytime a man or just a Black person, you know, mentions complexion, I think about my mom. So I didn't like that. And then there was this other guy that I was, you know, dating last year. You know, I told him what I went through with my mom, and he made a light skin joke. So for me, I really haven't had too many experiences, but I just know it's a trigger for me. And I feel like in relationships, if I tell you what my triggers are and you just constantly want to pounce on that and you don't, you know, have no regards, I can't deal with you. So those are kind of like two of my experiences.
Okay. Well said, Queen. Well said. Thanks so much for that contribution. Great message. Great message. Queen Mother Ima, I'm sure you've been listening, Queen Mother. You're well experienced. Now you, Queen Mother, you would be a brown skinned sister. You're not light bright and you're not chocolate. What wisdom can you share on this? What have you seen in terms of light skin worship in the Black community? Has it gotten worse since you were a child? Has it gotten better? Are we just more sophisticated with how we practice it? Do you see brothers looking over sisters, running straight to the light skinned girls? Because some of the sisters tonight, Queen Mother, they were very clear in that Black men have a lot to do with colorism in the Black community because we're constantly putting light-skinned women on a pedestal to the detriment of dark-skinned sisters. Not that light-skinned women don't have their own challenges, because they do as well, but a lot of people feel that if brothers would stop worshiping yellow skin and share some of the love around, you know, maybe we won't have this light-skin, dark-skin issue between the queens. What do you think, Queen Mother?
Okay, so I would say that in terms of the sexes, in terms of the sexes, it's the same, men and women. In terms of the ages, it's all ages. We have this sickness, all ages. In terms of the places, the only difference is some places are sneaky and some places are overt. So I'm going to give you a couple of little stories.
Sure.
And it'll fit right in with what I just said. Okay, and in the culture, it's everywhere. Okay, so here's a story about, Jesse Jackson was running for president the first time. Yes?
Yes.
And we were going across the country selling buttons and paraphernalia. Jesse paraphernalia. So we get to the city. I don't remember which city it was now. And we told the sister, the light-skinned sister, she had to go in. The light-skinned sister with the nice hair. Right. We told her she had to go in and get us a space. So she said to us, why I got to go in? We said, you know why you got to go in? If we go in, we're not getting a space. If you go in and you got your locks out and your hair look all pretty, and you're light, you're going to get a space, right? So she went in and got the space. And then when we came in later, their faces drop. So there we are in the culture, right? We were all culture sisters, okay? And in the culture, and this is the culture and the age. I recently had a conversation with a friend of mine. He's in his 70s. I'm in my 70s. I've known him a long time. And I asked him, I said, you and your brother have only had light-skinned sisters. Why? And he said, I prefer the light-skinned sisters, he said, because growing up, right, they had to prove themselves as black. He said, so they go extra hard, yes, and they stay with you. Right. So that was his interpretation. He's 70. Right.
This sounds like a cop-out, Queen Mother, don't it?
No, I'm just saying that's what he said. He felt, but I know him and his brother always only like light-skinned women. So that was our cop. I know it is a cop-out.
You know what I mean?
Ages. Here's again ages.
Mm-hmm.
My grandson, right. He came home from school one day. He's dark-skinned. Right. Okay. And he told me, he said, Grandma, they asked me, why did I have to be so black? And I told him, I said, when I was growing up, I said, they used to think I was a little weird. Our family runs from, my mother was very light and my father was very dark. But my mother never allowed us to refer to ourselves by skin color. So it's all in, we didn't refer to ourselves as that. So, but anyhow, he came home from school one day and they asked him, he said, Grandma, they asked me, why you got to be so black? And I told him to go back to school and tell him, say, listen, coffee is black. When you put milk in it, it gets weak. Right. Rice tastes better with gravy on it. Right. It's dark. Right. So I said, you're so pretty. I said, we've been contaminated. I said, look at Grandma. You see, Grandma is lighter than you because Grandma been a little poisoned. I said, and you're pure. Look at your beautiful black skin, So that made him feel good. And now, he's 19 and now, he loves his black self. And I said, and don't look for a woman by even outward so-called beauty, Look for her heart. Don't look, in the skin color. But in terms of place now, I used to think that when I went to South Africa, and you know how this is, I didn't like the Cape Town area because they call them colored, but not only colored. This is why I say the difference is sneaky and overt. Here, we're a little sneaky with it. But South Africa is very overt because of what they've been through. They made it colored and dark. They made them different, tell them they were different people, which is what we sneakily think in our minds. But they made them different people. So here's my story. I went to South Africa. I was staying in the so-called colored community. Now, Doc, I'm in the Ethiopian World Federation, which is an organization you must be black to come in.
Right.
That's your own right. Okay, so this day now, I was getting ready to travel from the Cape Town area to Durban. Say next week, I was making plans to go and visit a man who was opening his farm, a moringa farm. Mm-hmm. So he had invited me to the opening. So this day, me and his two sisters, yes, are having a conversation. And the sister asked me, say, where did I meet the white man that I'm going to the opening of his farm in Durban? I said, white man? I said, I didn't come to Africa to do no business with no white man. He's not white. So they said, well, what is he? I said, it's a black man. Oh, no, Mama. We can't let you go by yourself. Oh, wait till we tell our husbands. Well, when the husbands came home, right. So, make a long story short, those two sisters who had never been on a plane, their husband made them go with me to Durban. They told me all the things about black people, that they was dishonest when we went to Durban.
And these are the colored people doing this, right?
Wait a minute, I said I ain't finished telling the story. It's going to get worse, right? Because one of the sisters was so-called colored, light, but the other one was dark, but grew up amongst the colored. So she didn't even feel good about, being dark herself. She too was saying she was different. They're black. So she didn't really consider to Durban, they criticized everything. Oh, you see, I told you black people ain't no good and blah, 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 blah. So it's deep rooted. It's all ages. You know, in Ghana, you have a baby by a white man. They say, see my white baby? Right.
Wow.
The bleaching.
Wow.
You know, the bleaching hasn't gotten any better.
Oh,
You know,
Lord.
so
Woo.
it's just difference in subtle and overt or sneaky. Here we are a little sneaky with it. But, you know, we always said, I say as a people, we say we suffer from the light-skin syndrome. So the light-skin syndrome comes different ways. It comes like the person who's brought up like that, and then they think that they're better because they're light-skinned. And then you have those who's not light-skinned, dark-skinned, yes, and then they believe that the light-skinned person is better than them. So how they grew up, and they always have to defend their darkness, it makes them a little more angry. So we all suffer from this light-skin syndrome in some way or another. It's very good we're talking about it, you know, today. So give thanks now.
Wow. Thanks for that, Queen Mother. Let me ask you this, Queen Mother.
Yes.
The Black consciousness community, because you spend a lot of time in New York, so do I. Of course, Black consciousness is not limited to New York. You travel the country and the world, so do I. In your opinion, those who consider themselves to be woke, to be conscious, are they just as guilty of practicing skin color prejudice as is everyone else in the Black community? Or do you think they do a better job or a worse job?
They do no better job. They suffer. It's the same thing. You know, it's the same way, you know, we suffer from that syndrome. Because I know sometimes I'll go to an event or you know, I've gone to things and, you know, somebody who's thinks that they're better than you because they think they're all that because they suffer from that syndrome. And we'll say, oh, you know, she suffered from that light skin syndrome. Right. So it's there. Culture is no difference. I'm no difference either. So like I say, I too, I remember growing up, I didn't want no light-skinned brother. I was like, no, he too light. You could see his veins. I won't even say some of the things we used to say, I can't say on here. So, or I wouldn't say on here. So I know we all suffer from it. We grew with it. Maybe not even in our house. I didn't really grow with it in my house, but I grew with it out in the street. I experienced it. I went to school with I can't even think of her name now. Joanne. Her name was Joanne Chesimard then. You know who that is? She's in Cuba.
Asada Shakur.
Right. So I went to junior high school with her. And if you read her book, she talks about a brother named, she calls him David Pitcairn in the book, but she calls him Pecan, but his name was David Pitcairn. And he was light. And that's what so he was very popular. All the women, the girls, they loved him, you know. Oh, they loved David because he was light. And then we had a brother, they called him Old Black Joe. Same school now, same time. Old Black Joe, he was from Cuba. And my first boyfriend, I'm going to tell you how he became my first boyfriend. He was dark and he wasn't attractive. And nobody wanted him. And I felt sorry for him. And that's how he became my boyfriend. He said, well, you're the first girl that talked to me. I said, well, they don't talk to you. I don't know why they don't. They never got a chance to find out how nice the guy was because he wasn't very attractive and he was very black. But he was very nice, you know? But they never took the time to even find that out. So we suffer in all ages. It hasn't gotten better. You know, this thing in South Africa was just some 6 or 7 years ago, and that's going on real hot and heavy, the colored versus the black, because in Zania, South Africa, they made them different one over the other.
Yeah,
So,
and they got it bad. They get them coloreds
They got it
down
really
there.
bad. So I don't even like to go to the Cape Town area.
Yeah, I met some of them coloreds, boy. You talk about some light skin supremacy? Woohoo! But here's the question I was going to ask you, Queen Mother.
Yeah.
Amongst the elders of the black community, is it any better? Do they have any more wisdom, or are they just as caught up in skin tone worship as everybody else?
I told you what the man told me. He's still like the woman he picked with now. Not with the old wife. He got a new one, and she's like. That's how we got into the conversation. I was like, dang, you know, as old as your ass is, you still getting them light women because they're light. Why?
Wow.
Get out of that shit. Yeah, I told him, and he said, okay, like you said, it's an excuse. So he still was in it. It's still in it. We have that. You know, if you look at couples, if you go and look at couples, you'll see. Well, a lot of the time, one is dark and one is light. And that's because of how they grew up. The light-skinned person grew up getting hell because they were light-skinned, you see? And so they, in their mind, in their psychology, in their mind, it tells them that, oh, Dad, you know, I want to be with somebody dark. And then you don't see a lot of dark because they grew up saying, oh, don't get so dark, man, because you dark, and then the baby's going to be dark and ugly. Now we know that's how they grew up.
Wow.
And they still think we still have that. So it's in all ages, all places, and it's a deep-rooted, I don't even think it started here. I believe we was doing it in Africa. Yes.
Wow.
So
I tell you this, Queen Mother, before we let you go, and Atiana and Tima, you'll be our last two for the night. But as you know, Queen Mother, over the past couple years, I have been accused of not being related to Frederick Douglass, right? Now, I'm definitely related to him by blood. 4 times great-grand cousin. He was raised with my 4 times great-grandfather, Stephen Henry Bailey, who he mentions by name in his autobiography. It's unquestionable. My name is on the family tree and everything. So you would ask yourself, Queen Mother, if you are related to Frederick Douglass, why is it that nobody in that family saw fit to just clarify it in the public so people can be done with it and move on? And I could be wrong, but I believe 2 reasons why the Bailey family never sought to publicly clarify the fact that I am related to Frederick Douglass. I'm not a descendant. I'm a kinsman. I'm a descendant of his cousin. I'm not a descendant of his. But the 2 reasons I think nobody in the family saw fit to clarify that is, number 1, obviously, I'm a Garveyite, a Pan-Africanist, the revolutionary. You know, I very much believe in the sacredness of black skin. So that's probably the primary reason. But I also believe strongly, Queen Mother, that the reason why you have this family that has thousands of people in it, very well organized, with the president and secretary and all of that. And they all know me. They've all met me. I've been to the reunion since I was a little kid. And none of them saw fit to clarify my relationship to Frederick Douglass to the public. And I really believe, Queen Mother, that that had a lot to do with light skin supremacy. Now, everybody in the family isn't light. Okay, it's a very large family, got dark people and all of that. But when you look at the movers and shakers, when you look at the people who put things together, who organizes the family reunion, my biological father, they're light skinned. I don't look like them phenotypically, you see. And I really believe that one of the reasons why they never, because they could have ended that early. They could have said, yeah, he's related, story over. They never did. And I believe a lot of that had to do with the fact that I don't have the complexion for protection within that family. So that's just a little story of mine that, you know, illustrates the light skin supremacy that I think played a role in that whole, is he related to Frederick Douglass or not? That could have been easily dealt with, clearly dealt with. You know, that shouldn't have took a day, but it did, because I didn't have the complexion for protection within the family. And of course, the political ideology didn't make it any easier.
Well, Doc, you know half the hell that you receive from people is because you're a big, tall, black man talking black stuff.
Ooh, I'm glad you said that, Queen Mother. Let me give you something else. And Atiana and Tima, hold on for me, ladies. Hold on for me. Let me give you this, Queen Mother. And I'm not going to say no names. I'm not going to say no names. But I also believe this, Queen Mother. The jealousy and the envy that I get from other scholars in the conscious community, as well as other personalities. So by scholars, I mean real scholars. I mean people with legitimate doctoral degrees that they earned from a university. There's a degree of jealousy and envy there towards me from some of them. And then when I look at the fake woke YouTubian commentators, because they're not scholars, I would never call any of them scholars, but the fake woke YouTubian personalities in the conscious community, okay, many of them are light, Queen Mother. Many of them are light. Many of the scholars are light. Most of them are lighter than me. Although I'm not chocolate, I'm on the darker side of the spectrum when you deal with scholarship in Black consciousness. I believe, Queen Mother, that one of the reasons a lot of them have issues with me is because I am darker than them. I think that the jealousy stems from the fact that in Black America, we have a history of light-skinned leadership and light-skinned scholarship. Most of our leaders since slavery could pass a brown paper bag test. I don't care if it's Malcolm. I don't care if it's Martin. I don't care if it's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Okay, and I don't care if it's Jesse Jackson. I don't care if it's Minister Farrakhan. I don't care if it's Al Sharpton. Most of them can pass a brown paper bag test. Dr. Khalid and the Most Honorable Marcus Garvey are exceptions. I am also an exception, although I'm not much darker. I do not pass the brown paper bag test. And I'm saying to you, Queen Mother, I'm long-winded, but I'm saying all that to say that when you look at the beefs that I've had in the Black consciousness, damn near every one was a light-skinned brother, whether he was yellow or whether he was brown paper bag. If you look at everybody I beef with, nobody was chocolate. Everybody was lighter than me, and everybody provoked those beefs. And I can name a couple people right now, and I'm not going to, who got serious issues with me. And they are light as hell. And I know their problem stems from the fact that he should not be the number one person. They still have a mindset, Queen Mother, that leadership has to be light skinned. And I'm the first one in a long time to be number one, undisputedly number one in Black consciousness. And I'm not light-skinned. And I think a lot of the light-skinned speakers and scholars, their issue with me is I have the audacity, just like Dr. Khalid and Mr. Garvey, I have the audacity to be unapologetically dark-skinned. And I think that is the crux of why I've had so many beefs, and every one of them was lighter than me. So with that being said, Queen Mother, I'm going to thank you for that comment, and we're going to move on to Sister Atiana. Sister Atiana.